Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Good Dram Show with me, Chris Goodrum. Right, this afternoon, what we're up to. Well, as you probably know, a couple of weeks ago, 5th of June to be precise, I was asked to take part in yet another Twitter tasting, and this time it was to look at the newly launched, or relatively newly launched, Macallan range. This is the 1824 collection, which is replacing the fine oak range and the standard sherry cask range. So in due course I'll introduce the lineup, but bit of waffle first, I think. Right, so Macallan, pretty damn big distillery. Actually, sort of spaced over two separate plants. In actual fact, according to the book, it was founded in 1825, and it's been pretty much in continuous production pretty much ever since 1824. In actual fact, sorry, it was purchased in 1999 by the current owners, Edrington. And as well as you know, a lot of people love Macallan. Like I said, it's a fairly big distillery. It's got a capacity, or currently running at a capacity of 9.4 million litres of alcohol per year, and it uses a lot of sherry casks, as you well know. Not a lot actually particularly interesting to say about it, apart from, you know, they've released some very collectible whiskies over the years, and like I said, they use an awful lot of sherry cask. In saying that, you do tend to find a number of bourbon oaked expressions, certainly in the independent sector of the market, which is quite nice, because you get to see sort of Macallan in a completely different light. You actually get to see some of the distillery character, and it can be sort of really aromatic, quite floral. Sometimes it can be very sort of typically Speyside, grassy, citrusy, but a lot of the time, you know, because the distillery tends to use a lot of Oloroso casks, you just don't really get to see very much of that. So it will be interesting to see what this little lineup shows then. So right, I think I'll crack on and introduce the lineup then. Right, now, I mean, as you know, I'm not the biggest fan of sherry cask aged whiskies. I mean, as you know my views on them. I've stated it sort of quite often enough. I liked the fine oak range they did. I thought the balance of the fine oak range was really nice, given that the fact that it was, you know, predominantly American oak with a bit of sherry, and you got the sort of like the distillery character certainly coming through, which was nice. So let's look at the new range. Like I said, this is called the 1824 collection, and it starts with the Macallan Gold. Now, each of these three have been aged in it's all sherry cask, a combination of first fill Oloroso and refill sherry. And as you can see from the colours, I would guess, and I'm probably pretty certain, that this is that as you go along these particular colours, more first fill Oloroso is used until you get to the final one, the ruby, which is aged entirely in first fill Oloroso. And it's an interesting concept, I suppose. Basically what they've attempted to do is say, look, you know, at the end of the day, age statements don't really sort of matter when it comes down to a whiskey. They've released these whiskies according to colour, and you know, they pretty much work. So you've got the gold, you've got the second one, which is the amber, which, yeah, okay, yeah, you can say that's certainly amber. The sienna, which is a little bit more dark, a little more browner, and at the end here you've got the ruby, which yeah, it certainly has a sort of a ruby kind of hue to it. Yeah, it's an interesting concept, it has to be said. It's sort of like, you know, it gives the master blender, the option to sort of play around with different casks, different ages. Having tasted them already, it obviously seems to me that as you get progressively further along this range, you not only are you getting more Oloroso matured spirit, you're also certainly getting older spirit as well. So I would guess that, you know, the gold is going to be somewhere around about 10 years of age. The amber sort of 12 to 15. The sienna about sort of like 18, and probably the ruby sort of 20 odd, maybe a little bit older than that. But that's just purely a guess. And like I said, it's they don't carry an age statement, so you know, you kind of like have to taste them and make your own mind up. So anyway, I think that's enough of the waffling about that. So should we crack on and take a look at the gold then? Right, okay, so like I said, I think this is predominantly refill sherry with a smidge of first fill Oloroso. So let's see what the nose gives us then, shall we? It's not the cleanest spirit on the face of the planet, it has to be said, and I'm quite surprised. It's straw-like, it's a little bit murky. There's a bit of wet cardboard. Yeah, okay. So there's some dried fruits. There's a bit of sort of Oloroso-y spice. This is pretty poor, it has to be said, quality-wise. I'm seriously unimpressed with this. It's not nice. It's just a pervasive uncleanliness, which frankly amazes me that Macallan would release something like this. But and I think certainly when we did the Twitter tasting, there were other people that were doing the tasting, certainly picked up on the fact that this wasn't brilliant spirit, it has to be said. But yeah, it's just, like I said, it's just murky. Palate in. Again, it's not that clean. There's some baked fruit, a bit of dried fruit, a little bit of citrus, but it's really quite hard. The finish is rather metallic. That's not good. It's cardboardy. There's no sulphur. Certainly, it's not the it's certainly not the cask. It's just, that's not the greatest spirit, it has to be said. Big thumbs down to that one. Right, okay, let's move on to the amber. After that rather disappointing start, let's hope this picks up the baton, shall we say. That's nice. Nicely balanced. Quite luscious. A little bit of syrup coated orange, tangerine. Again, some sort of dusty spice. Yeah, I mean that's a pleasant enough nose. It's got a nice depth to it. Like I said, well balanced. Not getting a huge amount of distillery character, but then I wouldn't expect that. Pleasant. Palate. Richer, denser, darker, more dried fruits, some lovely spices, a bit of cinnamon, a bit of ginger. Getting a lot of ginger now on the finish, almost kind of ginger biscuits or maybe ginger cake, something like that. Gently spiced. That's nice, and that's very appealing. It has to be said. If you like sort of sherry cask whiskies, that's enjoyable. It's got depth. It finishes quite clean, with a bit of citrus and sort of a little bit of minerality. Yeah, not too bad at all. Right, okay, on to the Sienna then. Let's see what this gives us then. Now that is nice. Deeper, more dried fruits, walnuts, a little bit of chocolate, spices, again sort of in the sort of cinnamony, sort of nutmeggy kind of area. A lot more concentrated. You can certainly tell that there's more first fill Oloroso here. It's got that sort of really polished wood, that sort of very clean, polished kind of character to it. It's certainly not rough or edgy or anything like that. It's very, not commercial. Commercial is probably the wrong word, but it's very, very polished and very, very, very good. It's a lovely nose. A little bit of dried tropical fruit now. Getting some raisins. Lovely dusty spice. Spices are really nice. I mean, for a sherry cask or for a sherry aged whiskey, this is really enjoyable. Very enjoyable. Right then. That is nice. It's kind of taken the amber and sort of turned it up a notch or two. So you got more dried fruit, more licorice, more walnuts, more nutmeg and cinnamon, dark chocolate. Getting a little bit of vanillins on the finish now, a little bit of almost kind of grassiness, almost sort of the what you would expect from the character of the whiskey itself, which is quite a surprise given all the sherry that's kind of like hidden under. Very, very long. Again, it's got a little bit of bittering at the finish, but it's soft, it's smooth. Yeah, that's robust. That is very, very good. Again, like I said, you can't argue with the quality of that. And for a sherry aged whiskey, that's very, very good. And finally, let's look at the Ruby. This is, like I said, all first fill Oloroso, so I think we know what we're going to get. But let's see if we're right. Deep. It's got some maturity to it. Dusty spices, a bit of incense. Again, some ginger and nutmeg. Lots and lots of dried fruit. Sultanas, raisins, prunes. Very, very succulent, very moist. Very cake-like, I guess, Christmas cakey. Again, a little bit of warm vanilla, some toffee. And I think it's interesting because you can certainly see the progression. Certainly in the spices, there's a sort of a kind of not sameness, but there's certainly progression. You certainly getting the spices that were on the gold, even if they were a little bit cardboardy, coming through. Some burnt orange, really juicy, really luscious. That's a lovely nose for yeah, for an Oloroso aged whiskey. That is a very good nose. Out then. That's a mouthful. Loads and loads of dark dried fruits, raisins, sultanas, walnuts. Again, more tannic. Obviously, the first fill Oloroso is giving it quite a bit of tannin, a bit of sort of a lot of bitter chocolate, certainly on the middle. I'm disappointed with the finish. The finish, the spices on the finish are just that little bit fusty, and it's very drying. There's a lot of, like I said, a lot of tannin. The tannins are relatively soft, so I don't think that's a huge issue. It's that just that little bit of fustiness that kind of jars, if you see what I mean. Because aside from that, that is absolutely gorgeous. It's big, it's bold, it's rich, it's luscious, and it's just right at the end. It's just ruined for me by this little fustiness. I mean, I imagine a lot of people will probably taste it and they probably won't even notice it. I mean, it is not exactly like a big sulphur blemish that you can't help but see. But and maybe it's me. Maybe it's because I'm just that little bit more critical when it comes to sherry cask whiskies, because I'm not such a big fan of them. Right, okay, so let's sum this little tasting up. Really interesting. I'm very disappointed with the gold. The gold is just not gold. The spirit is just not very good at all, and frankly, I am surprised that was released at all. Just cardboardy, not particularly clean, not great. The amber's nice. It's got a nice balance to it. Pleasantly spiced. Yeah, that's not too bad at all. The Sienna, I think, was probably for me the standout bottling of the four. It certainly has lots of character. Yes, it's a lot of sherry, but I could even sort of pick out a little bit of distillery character, which was absolutely amazing when you think about it. And yeah, long, really nice. The Ruby, this isn't going to be cheap, so for sort of, I mean, I would guess 120 quid, something like that maybe. For that sort of level of whiskey, I don't want, any fustiness to it at all. Like I said, maybe that's just me being pedantic, maybe that's just me being sort of uber critical, I don't know, but certainly aside from that minor fusty character, a very good whiskey. But then there's always a but, isn't there? So for me, I think standout bottling, certainly the Sienna. The Sienna, I think, just was lovely balance of flavours, really nice. So guess that's basically about it. So hopefully Macallan's not too upset with my appraisal of this. I mean, I imagine everybody else will be loving these, and certainly I think when we finish the Twitter tasting, I think certainly the Sienna seemed to be, by relatively popular consensus, the most impressive of the four bottlings. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little episode of the show. So all I have to say is good afternoon and good running.